The UK said on Friday that Donald Trump was wrong to diminish the role of NATO troops in Afghanistan after a claim by the US president that they did not fight on the front line sparked outrage. In an interview with US broadcaster Fox News, Trump appeared unaware that close to 500 British soldiers lost their lives during NATO's Afghanistan deployment following the September 11 attacks on the US. Trump also repeated claims that NATO would not come to the US's service if requested, despite the mission in Afghanistan coming after Washington invoked NATO's collective security clause, the only time Article 5 was ever triggered. Starmer slammed Trump for his comments, calling them, quote, insulting and frankly appalling.
And so I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling.
The UK premier hailed the fallen soldiers as heroes and praised them for their bravery and sacrifice. He also reminded Trump that British troops did respond to the US's call and fought because of the relationship Washington and London share and to safeguard common values.
I think it's very important to try and clarify what remark he made and why and to whom. But on the face of it, when you say that the contributions of some troops weren't as powerful or weren't as critical as the contributions of other troops, it's a bit of a kick in the nuts, isn't it? I'm one of the ones that was disappointed in what he came out with, purely because I have military service background in my own family. And I, for one, take it very personally when anybody degrades or denigrates previous service. And that includes our government, our political parties seem to not treat the memory and the legacy of certain armed services personnel quite as well as they should have done. In America, they have the really right way of doing things where they hold their armed forces personnel in extreme reverence. If you look at the way they treat Congressional Medal of Honor winners, for example, they go above and beyond for them, and rightly so. But for Trump to turn around and say what he did and how he said what he did, it really didn't sit well. But he said NATO troops, so he's talking really all of the countries that form a part of NATO. And what he was trying to say was that they didn't do as much as America, winding it all up. Well, obviously, we needed some clarification on this. And he left a message which really changed, the situation in my mind, at least. And that was this one here. The great and very brave soldiers of the United Kingdom will always be with the United States of America. In Afghanistan, 457 died. Many were badly injured, and they were among the greatest of all warriors. It's a bond too strong to ever be broken. The UK military, with tremendous heart and soul, is second to none except for the USA. We love you all and always will. President Donald J. Trump. Now, I don't know if anybody else spotted what he was actually doing there, but what he was doing was really singling out the UK and saying, you fought alongside us. And it feels like he's doing that to NATO, because NATO seems to be in the firing line, really. But you can't really take away from the memories of all of those soldiers that paid the ultimate price. Going back to right back at the beginning, 2001, I wasn't actually a taxi driver in 2001. I worked for a IT services provider, someone that gave training for unemployed people that needed to get back into work and all that sort of thing. And we didn't have access to TV and radio, anything of that nature. And I remember getting in my car at the end of the day, and the very first thing I heard was the United States of America has been attacked. I thought, oh my God. And I got home as fast as I could in time to come through the door And I can still see the shocked look on my mum's face to this day, staring at the telly in disbelief. And that's the first time I saw it. I, of course, referred to one of the aircraft slamming into one of the towers at the World Trade Center. A day that arguably changed the world forever. Certainly moved us all in another direction. And on that day, America, activated NATO Article 5. In the case an attack on one member is an attack on all members, and NATO came to their aid. So really to, say that in the first place, it is a kick in the nuts, although I'm reasonably happy with the statement he made and feel that does change it, because he said UK troops at least were there, they did their thing. But I remember as time went on, we learned a little bit more, where we realized things that were going on. It didn't quite add up anymore, did it? And I kept seeing over and over when I walked in a local shop, newspapers of our service personnel injured, our service personnel lost their lives, our service personnel disadvantaged by the situation they found themselves in over and over again. It was awful. And then those service personnel come out of the armed forces, and then what happens to them? They need help, they need support, they need everything, they deserve everything. So it's horrible when you do see politics being played like this. I want to go through some of the other reaction on social media, and you can see some of it here. The top one, we've got British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has urged Donald Trump to apologise for his false assertion that troops from NATO countries other than Americans stayed away from the front line during the war in Afghanistan. I think they're playing politics with the whole thing to a degree, where you've got stuff going on with Greenland and everything else. It is not pleasant. You can see here 457 killed, 32 billion quid gutted, second highest NATO toll. Trump backtracks, calls UK soldiers brave in outrage. Donald Trump initially said NATO troops were a little off the front lines in, US President Trump on Saturday praised brave British soldiers, calling them warriors, a day after remarks he made about NATO troops in Afghanistan were described as insulting and appalling by Britain's Prime Minister. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Sunday the comments from Trump lamenting the efforts of non-US troops in Afghanistan, completely unacceptable. Secretary Scott Bessent just watched you on ABC, and I threw up when I asked about NATO soldiers. Donald Trump's comment about them, you totally, I repeat, totally invaded whether or not you thought it was appropriate. You're disgusting and selfish. You insult American soldiers. After outrage, Trump backtracks on criticism of UK troops. No, Nigel Farage did not say that in response to Trump's comments on NATO troops in Afghanistan. Farage stated on X, Donald Trump is wrong. For 20 years, our armed forces fought bravely alongside Americans in Afghanistan. After backlash over his remarks on non-US NATO troops, US President Donald Trump praised British troops, calling 457 British service members killed and seriously injured among the greatest of all warriors. And, you can see the feedback, and some of them will not accept that statement. They wanted him to bend over and apologise, and he's not going to do that, is he? He's not going to do that. But one thing which really interests me, particularly with Afghanistan, you look at when America pulled out, the position became, untenable, and they all had to pull out. You look at the billions in military equipment left behind to be seized by them, and you look back on it, you look at all those deaths, you look at all the destruction, and many people that served there probably that think, what the fuck was the point of all of that? Again, it's politics playing with the world and people's lives. Crazy. Totally and utterly crazy. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share my stuff. I'll talk to you soon. Toodaloo.